Alright lads, I'm your host, Man And His Kebab. So it's that time of year where once again we face down the launch of yet another Call of Duty game, and once again people are complaining. So we're going to talk about Black Ops 4 for a second. This was probably the lowest point in Call of Duty's history. Not so much because of the hate it got, rather the fact that nobody cared about it, and this was reflected in the game's sales numbers. For once it genuinely did look like Call of Duty could die. And then Modern Warfare 2019 came out, and pretty much everybody was playing this game, largely due in part to Warzone. It once again looked like Call of Duty was gonna have a great revival. And then Call of Duty Cold War came out. Now I've yet to actually buy this game, hence why it's not in my hands, largely due to the fact that I just didn't find it that interesting at launch. And I'm kinda glad I didn't buy it, because all I've heard is complaints about the skill-based matchmaking in multiplayer. And the problems with Cold War have unfortunately reflected onto Vanguard. However, the main complaints about Vanguard seems to be its similarities to COD World War II, which came out 4 years ago. However, this did remind me of another game that stirred up controversy at launch due to its similarities to a game that came before it. A game released 10 years ago, all the way back in 2011, named Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Modern Warfare 3 had a rocky development cycle from the start, and it's easy to see why. In early 2010, half the Infinity Ward team that developed the first two Modern Warfare games left the company, largely due to unpaid bonuses, which wasn't exactly a good thing, seeing as development of the third Modern Warfare had just kicked off, forcing Activision to draft in Sledgehammer to help. Yeah, these guys. However, unfortunately, this led to Modern Warfare 3 taking a lot from Modern Warfare 2, which is also why it's commonly called Modern Warfare 2.5. However, the game was still a huge success at launch, selling millions of copies and topping sales charts. And of course we can't forget about this thing. But amongst players, it wasn't so well received. There was constant complaints about how samey the gameplay felt to Modern Warfare 2, how the guns were carbon copies, how the maps weren't great. But it's 2021 now, so it's time to see if this was just rage-induced bickering, or if these are actually well-founded points. The campaign of Modern Warfare 3, it's pretty good. I'm not going to hang around the story side of things too much because it's not very interesting. But anyways, we pick up exactly where Modern Warfare 2 left off, with Soap being treated for his injuries from his fight with Shepard, and the defibrillator giving us probably one of the coolest title cards in all of gaming. Next up, it's back to the good old US of A, where a ranger team called MW3 is battling through New York City against the still ongoing Russian invasion. They blow up a jammer, attack a submarine, and bing bang boom, back to Soap and Price, along with their new friend Yuri. He'll be important later, who are now being attacked by the one and only one of these Russian names. Next up, Mr. Russian Man decides to attack the plane of Bigger Russian Man, aka the President, and tries to kidnap him. And next up we get one of the most brutal scenes in the entire franchise besides maybe No Russian, which basically acts as the trigger for the invasion of Europe by the Russians. The next part is pretty simple. MW3 rescue the President and capture the Russian Man's bomb maker. Price, Soap, and Yuri continue to track down Makarov, that's his name, before finally attempting an assassination on him. It doesn't exactly go well, and we get one of the few moments that instills an emotion in the player besides blind rage in the entire franchise.
Oh no! Soap! No! Soap! You have to go now! Get off of me! I'm sorry.
With the death of Soap, we get some background on Yuri through Price's interrogation of him. He was there for all gillied up, he was there for the nuke, and he was there for...
Remember, no Russian.
And has since realised maybe killing 30,000 people with a nuke was a bad idea. We go to a castle, then to Berlin to rescue the President's daughter, to Siberia where we rescue the President. I just realised when I said President 30 seconds ago I meant to say Vice President, and lose MW3. Poor James Hetfield. And finally go on a Red Bull fueled rampage to kill Makarov once and for all. Oh yeah, Yuri dies. So, was the story any good? Well, as good as the previous two, not exactly, but it was still a pretty solid way to finish off the trilogy. Worth one or two playthroughs, and that's about it honestly, which is kind of ironic coming from the man who's now played it 4 times. Campaign gameplay. It's exactly like Modern Warfare 2. The gunplay is the same, the difficulty is the same, it has a lot of scripted sequences like Modern Warfare 2. Now none of these are necessarily a bad thing. Modern Warfare 2's campaign played pretty much flawlessly, but there's nothing here that's really unique. Nothing that makes you go, oh, that's new. If you've played one, you've played the other. Fast-paced and tight gunplay, balls-to-the-wall driving sequences, and a literal fuck-ton of explosions. Now one thing that is great, however, is where the levels are set. Game design-wise, they're Call of Duty levels, they ain't exactly complex, but just having levels set in the New York Stock Exchange, the London Underground, or the Catacombs of Paris is very cool, which depending on your preference can show how good or how bad this campaign is. Modern Warfare 3's multiplayer. I prefer it to Modern Warfare 2's. Yeah, I'm about to be strung up from a petrol station like Mussolini. Okay, I'm just gonna get this out of the way straight away. There obviously is bias here. I played a lot more of Modern Warfare 3 as a kid than I ever did Modern Warfare 2, and it's really all down to preference. But I'm here to highlight what makes this multiplayer objectively good, rather than what I think is better. So I'm not gonna be afraid to critique it either. My first critique, the maps. They aren't exactly great. Okay, sure, we have Dome, Resistance, and Underground, which are all good maps, but then you also have Downturn, Seatown, Outpost, Hard Hat, and most of the other maps, which are either boring, not fun to play, or downright annoying to play, especially with how bad the spawns are on some of them. Now look, a lot of these maps are still fun to play. Sure, the game's flow is all over the place on some of them, but at least they aren't simple 3-lane maps. But unfortunately, maps like Lockdown do promote a hefty dose of camping, and are neither interesting nor memorable, in my opinion. I mean, even the best map in the game, which is Terminal, was ripped straight from Modern Warfare 2. Now, even with that hefty criticism of the maps, the multiplayer ain't that bad. The variety of modes here is definitely a strong point, with plenty of new ones such as Team Defender, Kill Confirmed, Drop Zone, and Infection, which funnily enough didn't return in another COD game till Advanced Warfare, even though it was a fan favourite here. Kill streaks / score streaks were hugely overhauled here, with 3 different strike package options to choose from: Assault, Support, and Specialist. Assault is your simple kill streaks with things such as your Osprey Gunner and Attack Helicopter. Support is focused on helping your team and is achieved through score rather than kills, with streaks such as the UAV and SAM turret. And finally Specialist, which gives you access to additional perks with every kill. On the creative class side of things, of course we have a ton of guns with different mods and attachments, equipment, and of course the dreaded death streaks. Are you really surprised? Basically Infinity Ward saying, yeah man, we know you're shit, but here's a bonus anyway. Weapon progression is now also a thing, and speaking of progression, there are 80 levels till you can prestige. Just a tad overkill maybe. Quickscoping isn't nearly as prevalent, kill streaks aren't nearly as devastating, and overall, it feels like you've a bit more time in between gunfights, so long as your spawn locations aren't fucked. Weapon balance is mostly okay, with a few outliers of course, notably the ACR and Akimbo FMG9s. Theater mode, split screen, the prestige shop, this multiplayer has it all, and it's probably one of the most expansive multiplayers in the franchise, especially when you include Call of Duty Elite and all the DLC. But what is it like today in 2021? It's dead as fuck. Yeah, peak hours, you're looking at a player count of around 1,500 on Xbox 360, with even lower numbers on PC and PS3. The game is also rampant with hackers, although not as bad as other games, mainly due to the fact that most of them just use aimbot snipers, so you're still fully capable of killing them so long as you shoot first. So unfortunately, coming back to this game in 2021 will more than likely leave you disappointed. However, there still is one more mode to go over. Spec Ops was first seen in Modern Warfare 2. It's just copying everything from this! And was a very solid experience. In fact, one of my first videos on this channel was discussing the mode. Granted, I wouldn't recommend going back and watching it, it's pretty painful to watch. But in short, it takes missions from the campaign and remixes them with different objectives or routes to take. In Modern Warfare 3, we have these missions once again. However, in my opinion, these ones are neither as fun or as difficult as Modern Warfare 2's. Now I have played through all these missions on Veteran, and let me tell you, it's a real roller coaster, with some missions being absolute slugfests, while others you can complete in 2 to 3 attempts. We do have a good variety of missions here: Stay Sharp, which is this game's version of the Pit, Hostage Taker, and Little Bros. The problem I have with these missions, however, is that in Modern Warfare 2, the Spec Ops missions felt distinct enough from the campaign missions. Here, however, the missions are pretty much the exact same thing copied over. There's also less of a focus on co-op this time, with only 2 missions outright requiring 2 players, but it's still a pretty fun experience. Now survival on the other hand, Oh boy, this was Infinity Ward's answer to Treyarch Zombies, and although it's not nearly as in-depth as the latter, it's still a hell of a lot of fun. You are dropped headfirst into a fight to the death scenario against waves of enemy forces consisting of dogs, suicide bombers, and juggernauts. Multiplayer maps are used instead of dedicated maps, which is a bit of a bummer, but there is 16 to choose from minus DLC, so it's hard to complain. You have the ability to buy weapons, equipment, and air support from various armory stations, and beyond that, it's simply a case of surviving. The grind to get all that stuff in the armories is hefty, but it does give you more of an incentive to return over and over. So although Modern Warfare 2 Spec Ops does have better missions, Modern Warfare 3 Spec Ops has a lot more to do overall. Which brings us to the big question. Is Modern Warfare 3 actually any good? It's on the floor, for fuck's sakes. Yeah, obviously it's good. However, this game did suffer from a major identity crisis. Trying to step out of the shadow of one of the most successful multiplayer games of all time wasn't exactly going to be easy, even before the split in Infinity Ward, but especially after. The campaign again is definitely worth a play, however there's not much incentive to return to it beyond that. The multiplayer is definitely the focal point here, and has a lot to it. Definitely more than its predecessor. However, a lot of players do still prefer the more chaotic and simple nature of Modern Warfare 2, and although Spec Ops does feel more fleshed out this time round, it also feels like a lot of corners were cut, especially with the missions, but also partially in survival. Modern Warfare 3 was a jumbled mess of a game, and although it doesn't hold the status of its predecessor in many people's eyes, it's still a very good game. Definitely not deserving of all the hate it got at launch, and although nowadays it doesn't offer much incentive to return to it, it's still one of my favourites in the franchise. This game ended the quote-unquote golden era of Call of Duty, with the exception of this one. It's Black Ops 2 if you couldn't tell. Which isn't to say there wasn't good games released after this point, but the franchise's fan base continued to become more and more divided over what they wanted as the years went on. Some opting for a new approach, while others clung to the old ways. Now me personally, I don't particularly care. I've hated some of these games that a lot of other people have loved, and loved some of the games that other people have hated. And this is the best way to be in my opinion. Not on Twitter complaining about how Vanguard is unrealistic. Like the rest of the series was any better. Anyway guys, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. More than likely this video took a lot of time to edit, so I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.